Hi, everyone, and welcome to Left Unattended, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on what it really means to be neurodivergent in the workplace. I'm your host, Sosa, and together we're going to explore the stories that often go untold, like the experiences, the challenges, and the wins that shape how we show up at work, whether the systems around us are ready for us or not. So today I'm excited to welcome Tori Burgos. Tori began her career as a dog trainer, working with dogs with serious behavioral challenges before pursuing veterinary technology. She started as a veterinary assistant back in 2017, graduated from tech school in 2021, and passed the VTNE that same year. Alongside her work in vet med, she became an AKC Canine Good Citizen Evaluator. Pretty cool. And competes in agility with her own dog. Over the past 4 years, Tori has developed a strong passion for anesthesia, focusing her career in surgery and anesthesia. She now works in specialty medicine with expertise in both anesthesia and the high-intensity environment of emergency and ICU care. Welcome, Tori. I'm glad to have you.
Well, thank you. What an introduction. Happy to be here.
I'm excited because you and I actually used to work together in a general practice, veterinary practice together. And I am really excited to bring up some of the things that you and I have done in our short time together. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is, I'm sure you know, the toilet paper rule that you brought up, because when you and I work together, some of that comes from neurodivergence, which I really reflected on after the fact. And you have graciously allowed me to use that terminology as I developed kind of a book around it in kind of the lens of universal design. But I'd love to hear from you, what is the toilet paper rule in your perspective, and how we did that in practice?
Yeah, I love the toilet paper rule. Unfortunately, I can't take full credit for it. The toilet paper rule is something that was introduced to me as a baby tech when I was first graduated at the general practice that I was at, which it was a private practice. So we did a lot more urgent care and in hospital, more internal medicine sorts of things. So we were more high intensity than the general practice that you and I worked at together. But something that I took from that I carried with me was the toilet paper rule. So there was this doctor that I worked with there. We called her Dr. W. I'll never forget her. She taught me so much, and she's retired now. But she had these things that she would do in her clinics. They owned 3 clinics, and one of them that she would die on a hill by was that toilet paper roll. So we had colored stations in the treatment area and in each of the exam rooms, and throughout it went all the way even to reception. Each drawer had a color coded system. And at each of these,
I love that.
Yeah, I know, so good. And at each of these stations, it had every single thing that you would need for any treatment with any animal that walked in the door. So if we had an animal that came in difficulty breathing, we had oxygen at every single station and in every single room. We had so when you're in a treatment area and you're trying to draw blood and you can't for the life of you find the butterfly needles that you might need for this cat, because there just happens to not be any at that specific station. No one ever wants to go to that station with the cat because they know that there's no butterfly needle stock there. Every single station had every single thing that you would need for any treatment, anything like that. So everything that the hospital carried, and granted, I love the toilet paper rule because it is diverse. You can change it as needed for each clinic, because certain clinics carry more or less than others. But for the capacity of what that clinic works in, you can use this toilet paper rule for any clinic of any that works with any capacity of animals, and you just kind of change it to what your team feels that means for that. What do they need at each station to feel that they have what they need to fully work up their patient or whatever that may look like in front of them, and not feel that extra stress of not having what you need in front of you. It seems like a small thing, but it makes a huge difference. So that was something that I always...
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, because I think we, as neurodivergent people, often birth ideas out of probably efficiency. Mm-hmm. And when we get to the core of it, I really think it's the principle of universal design, so that people have what they need when they need it. Right. And we're designing systems that benefit everyone, and not designing systems that were inherited to us, and we just do things the way we've always done them. So I absolutely love that rule. And so I've kind of expanded on that premise a little bit further on like I love it. It's like when you sit down to use the toilet paper should be within arm's reach. Like that's the whole principle.
How frustrating is it when you're the person that goes into the bathroom and the last person didn't leave the toilet paper and you reach the cabinet while you're sitting.
It's such a vulnerable moment.
And you can't walk away from your patient to go grab what you need. It's the same sort of frustration, and that sort of everybody else is already doing something. You can't always be like, can you go grab that for me? It is such a game changer to apply this sort of thing. And it's funny that this amazing doctor that I worked with called it that, and because it sticks to you and it makes you think. And I honestly didn't realize that it was like a type of neurodivergent sort of way of thinking to use this sort of tactic until you brought it up to me when we were talking about it, because we were talking a lot about these universal designs and the planograms and things like that. And we were like, but this is not a one size fits all sort of situation. And that is just unfortunately not thought about when these universal designs are made. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And I love it because to expand it further, I want to be like, when you're sitting on the toilet, it should be with arm's reach. When you enter the workplace, everything that you need cognitively, physically, emotionally should be available to you within arm's reach. And that doesn't mean our workplaces have to be therapists. It means we need to just know where our resources are that our employers give them. So I absolutely love this kind of expansion into universal design. So
that's a great
one. Thank you for bringing it to me because it gave word and light into something I felt for a long time. Yeah. I'm
happy you're using it.
In fact,
I wouldn't have thought of that either. But that's a great point.
I loved it because you and I sat and like organized cabinets in a way, and we thought it through, right? Like we stood in front of cabinets and we're like, okay, if I'm sitting here doing a dental, what do I need to do a dental, right? So like,
you're like,
everything needed to be within arm's reach.
Drawer. I'm not going to turn around and eat scissors while I'm cleaning the teeth. That's for later. You're like, let's just move this drawer. And you sit there and you think it through. And I
loved it.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear from you. So like, what are the darker moments that you've had in the workplace? Like, what are some of the things that your neurodivergence has been misunderstood or mislabeled or, in the work setting? Because those are the stories that we want to bring to light and just, have awareness for the general population.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind for me is when I was still newer in the field, like coming out, I had worked in the veterinary clinic setting for a while, but I was still in school. So I wasn't expected to have as much responsibility. So after I graduated, I think it really, I was kind of trying to like find my footing, like what this meant for me working as a technician in this field. And there are certainly things that just start to happen that you can't think about beforehand. And I had never been in these situations before. And my initial, like the way that I would normally react to things, the way that my brain would react to things, and the way that I would move about my life as a person with ADHD was not always the most the best way. It wasn't always reciprocated well. Because I think that I hadn't figured out how to move about in this field with other people that didn't think the exact same way as me, because now there were heavier stakes. There were higher stakes. There was a lot more at risk. There were, this is medicine. We have patients in our care and we have to have good communication with our teammates because medical mistakes can happen. And so that was something that was really a struggle for me to kind of figure out. I think mainly it was communication because I am typically more of like a closed off sort of communicator. I'm usually in a zone, and as we know, you can't really
that hyper focus.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's exactly what it is. The hyper focus on doing my tasks and doing them to the best of my ability. It just simply doesn't work well when you're working with a team. And so learning how to just communicate like a team member was a struggle for me, because I still want to be able to focus on the task, like my own task at hand. But I was also still learning. So like learning these new skills And that's a whole nother thing that I would like to talk about, because communication can be really hard, I think, especially with all of the different types of people that we work with, because everybody else has different communication styles. And so what originally started to happen was like, I think I was kind of getting, I don't necessarily want to say labeled, because my team was amazing and my manager was amazing working with me through this. But I felt as though I was being perceived as a person that was difficult to work with, because I wasn't fully able to communicate what I was thinking or feeling that I wanted to communicate, or like why I was doing certain things, or like if I was moving too quickly in one way and just not realizing that I needed to like communicate things first. I think it was coming off as different than what it actually was. And so that was really hard. Yeah. And so I can see how other people may also struggle with that. It's made me more aware of like, if there are people in the workplace that I'm like, I try not to be like, well, they're just a bad communicator, because what else is going on?
I find that us neurodivergent people are so much more accommodating and so much more open to different styles of communication, to how people function in the world. Like I just, probably not a blanket rule, and I don't want to use absolutes, but I have come across more neurodivergent people who are much more just inclusive minded because of our own struggles that we go through, and our own, the labels that get thrust upon us that aren't really true, but that's how they are perceived. And so I think that's what I'm hearing from you. Yeah.
Open-minded.
It's like we're just more open to other people and how they act, or how they walk through life, even though it may not, resonate, or we may not understand it. We're willing to just be like, okay, that's just who they are. And we work with it.
Something that I heard at one time with a coworker of mine, who I believe was also neurodivergent. She said, I try to approach things with curiosity before I assume. And I said, that is a great way. That is a great way to live. I think it
curiosity just solves so much. Like it's a great just like leadership principle in general. And it just solves so much. Like, just get curious about what's going on. Like just because we don't agree with it, or we don't understand it, like, get curious.
Yeah. And that makes you come off as much different than if you were to just go and be like, you're doing that wrong, rather than, hi, can I ask why you're doing it that way?
Yeah. And for us, I don't know about you, I can speak for myself. I'm all about the why. Like, tell me why this is happening. Like that, it often gets me in trouble in practice, right? Like the practice you and I worked at, it certainly got me in trouble. It's like, I don't understand why we do it this way. It doesn't make sense. Like, somebody please give me the why.
I'm pretty
sure
there.
To your point, we get labeled as difficult.
Yeah. We're probably like, you know why? And I'd be like, I don't know why. Should we ask? And you're like, I don't know. You asked.
I don't understand this.
Yeah.
It's like the label for me, like, you may have been difficult. The label for me was always like a pot stirrer or very negative. And it's like, really, I need to understand. Like, and I'm asking more people to help me understand. And it probably comes off the wrong way to them. But really, we just want to know the why and really understand what we're doing, because it doesn't make sense in our brains.
Yeah. And I would see that with you too, because there was often like this, I think you asking whys so often was coming off as like, oh, well, he's really negative. And I would be like, but is it though? Because, everybody's complaining about the same things. But nobody's asking or seeking to change. We're just sitting here complaining. So, yeah. Yeah, but I think you're right. I mean,
it's like, if you understand the why, right? Like, for me, if you understand why are we loading rooms the way I don't know, I'm just picking something out of thin air, right?
Yeah.
If you understand the why, like, that's what success should look like. This is the reason why we do it. Well, it's like, that doesn't mean that the how has to be this way. We can then remove the hurdles and do it in a way that still meets success, and not in a way that people just don't understand or are causing friction.
Right.
So I think that's, to me, is why the why is so important.
I agree with you. I was thinking about that yesterday when we were talking about coming on here. I was like, a lot of the reason why it is difficult for for me to like communicate with other people in the way that like I say things and the way that I learn, especially in roles where like I'm still growing or whatever. Often I don't feel comfortable doing things if I don't fully understand them. And that is like, it's a positive and a negative because it does make my patient care real. Like I have a very high standard for my own medicine. And I can uphold that because I don't do things that I don't fully understand why I'm doing them. But it can be taxing, I think, for others that are working with me or that are teaching me or asked to help me with something or whatever the case may be. Because I will continue to ask in a different way, even if it's been explained to me.
Yes.
I still don't understand it. I'm like, I'm really sorry, but can you just try to explain this in a different way? Because I'm going to keep asking until it clicks. And I can feel the click in my brain every time. And then I don't forget it and it sticks and I understand it and I'm good to go. But sometimes that takes repetition and like I need to hear 5 or 6 different ways or like have it happen 5 or 6 different times or do it multiple times until it clicks. And that might be in a day and it might be in a month. And that is just that's just, I don't want to say unfortunate because I'm trying to be kinder to myself about the way that I learn things. But I've stuck with that because that is just the way that's the way I work. And I've found that for people around me, sometimes it can seem a bit frustrating. And again, it comes up that I feel as though sometimes it ends up me being perceived as being difficult to work with. And so that's just like one of the caveats that I've kind of had to navigate through working in veterinary.
Yeah, I love what you say because like that standard of medicine is really important, right? Like it's probably a value that you and I share, like the standard of medicine. And so when something doesn't quite meet the standard or the why doesn't quite meet the standard of care, like I will question it. And I think it's good, right? Because our field, our profession, we have such a high turnover rate. We have such a high burnout rate and people are leaving our profession and not using veterinary medicine as their career, right? So we've got an influx of people outside of vet med learning on the job who don't understand the why and just do things the way they've been told by one person as if it's like, that's the rule and they don't understand the why. And when things happen in the practice, it's like, they don't know how to problem solve either because they don't understand the why behind it. So I am a proponent of like, let's really, and I think that's the difference between on the job training probably and some, being a credentialed technician where you've gone to school, you understand the why behind everything. And that's probably another reason why we need to have, a distinction between credentialing and non-credentialing. That's a whole other topic that we could dive into.
A whole other but I think it is important to talk about because because of the stakes, right? Because people are coming in, don't fully understand not always, but it's just not fully understood. Medicine is progressive, especially veterinary medicine. Our care for our pets is not what it used to be. And people coming in, I like what you said, are coming in and out, kind of not seeing it as a career when a lot of us are. Yeah. And I think it can get difficult to be able to differentiate, where we're at if these people all of us are mixed together in a clinic and we're not fully all on the same page about things. And then you throw in burnout and long hours and, euthanasia is when people were not trained on how to emotionally handle those sorts of things. And then lack of resources on how to handle that. And it's just like layers upon layers of difficulties, but yeah.
I want to shift over to another point that you and I have shared before and you've talked about, and that's kind of like some barriers that we face at work. And one of those that we share is kind of the breaks, right? Like I feel really thankful that in vet med, we now have more practices and more awareness on the importance of taking a lunch break, right? There's more emphasis on it. There's more emphasis on mental health, even if there's not an understanding or great awareness about neurodivergence. Mm-hmm. And for me, I've always talked about like, if you give me 6-10-minute breaks, I can be a high achiever. I can run in, and I could practice really high quality medicine and last all day long without getting exhausted.
Yeah.
And I know that was something that you and I had talked about before, like what works for you
So yeah, I remember us talking about this because when we worked together, our breaks were and granted, I will give them a lot of credit because we were encouraged to always take a break, which was very appreciated.
I love it. Yeah.
The standard usually is like 30 minutes. Like in general, I feel like this is what in veterinary medicine practices do, like 30 minutes during a 10-hour shift. And then sometimes if you're doing like a 12-hour shift, it'll be an hour or whatever. The thing that is frustrating for me is that it is always, regardless, it's just one break. And again, it's this like assuming one size fits all sort of situation. And that's just the case. Some people can go 7 or 8 hours straight with no break at all, and then take 30 minutes and do another 7 to 8 hours. Godspeed. But for me,
right?
At the 3 or 4 hour mark, I can feel like I am now full. I have been at a hot, being at work is very hot, very overstimulating. And I'm used to it and can do it. And I have tools and things that I use to, do what I do every day. But I can feel that around that 3-4 hour mark, depending on the day. But I can feel myself be like, the word that I think of is full. I'm at my stimulation capacity and I need a second. And so what I try to do is I just take 5. And I'm thankful to work with a team currently that is very receptive of that, because I think especially because I'm usually in a really high capacity, high stress situation. And so everybody tends to sometimes needs to take 5. But I do it frequently. Like mid-morning, I'll be like, guys, I am taking 5. And granted, sometimes in emergency medicine, there's just absolutely no way you can walk out in the middle of, if you're feeling overstimulated, you can't always just walk out. But I try to remember that my quality of medicine is not going to be as good if I don't take care of myself first. And I do find that even 3 to 5 minutes outside or even in the bathroom, does make a huge difference. I just like the quiet and that internal reset gives me another 4 to 5 hours. And then I can take my 30 minutes or whatever. And that also does help. That longer one during the day, I think, is also necessary. I will say I don't like taking a full hour because I feel like...
Oh, tell me about it.
I feel like my brain kind of comes out of it, and then to have to go, it's like I'm going back into work again in the morning, and I don't love that. So I like the 5-minute increments. I'll do maybe 2 to 3 a day, and then a 30-minute in the middle. I feel like is my sweet spot. Yeah, and I do 12-hour shifts. So if I do a 10-hour, typically maybe I would end up taking a 5 in the afternoon or in mid-morning, and then a lunch break in the middle or somewhere in between there. But yeah, I've found that works best for me. Yeah.
I love what you said. Breaks are not a one size fit all, right? We're all individuals. We're all different. And for us, it's about how our brain handles stimulation, whether that be, any of the 5 senses. At the veterinary hospital, you've got all the different smells. You've got all the different the sounds going off, the beeping fluid pump that everybody wants to just smash, but you need that piece of equipment. You've got the dental compressors. You just have got so much, let alone the patients who come in and that are meowing and barking and all of the things, and the clients who are fearful, and you can feel their emotions going on. There's just so much that for me, if I were to have an hour break, and I live it, right? I live an hour break. So I'll work the first half of my shift really, really efficiently.
Yeah.
I can memorize the doctor's orders and be ahead. And then that second, coming back from an hour break, I just remember what did the doctor say? What strength medication are we doing?
Which NSAID was that? Fell asleep, and now I need to go take a full nap.
Yeah. And then I'm just groggy. I've got brain fog. It's not, don't come back quite the same. And then that kind of leads for me that internal shame and that spiral of like, I'm not good enough to be here right now. And then anything that is a negative at all, whether the client's upset, it's just kind of like puts a whole negative twist to my day. And then I come out of there like, what? I did not do a good job. Why didn't I do a good job? And it's like, it's just, if I could be accommodated for 6-10-minute breaks, and that is the letter of the law, right? Here in where we live, or where I live, it's like, yes, you need an hour-long break for any shift over 6 hours. That doesn't mean it has to be a 1-hour consecutive break, right? Like we can create accommodations for our people. And I would love that we could be more employer-led and have accessibility, but that's a whole nother level to ask for right now. And I hopefully one day soon our employers will be more understanding of that. So
I think,
and again, I don't want to sound unappreciative, because I love the fact that we now get breaks in vet med.
I know.
When I got entered the field 20 years ago, it was not a thing.
Breaks not a thing. And I work with people that don't like
have breaks.
They do. They go. They shoot right through. And I'm like, hey, man, if that works for you, like, great. And there are some days where I feel like if I take a break right now, I'm not coming back in. And that just happens. And it's a day-to-day thing too, because I think it's important to talk about the fact that it is so much so not a one size fits all, not just for the people, but for the job, for the field that we work in. Every single day is so different. We could have a day of back-to-back euthanasias, and somebody on the team might have a sick family member in the hospital or something that they're also dealing with. And these are very triggering. And that day of breaks for them might look a lot different than the day before that was all visits, and so I think it's important to have like so much more of an understanding and an open mind on if this is more so for like a management, I think, in places to understand that there needs to be more leeway on breaks and how we're allowing our staff members to care for themselves in that way. But it's difficult because things look so different every day. So there's a lot of caveats that have to be considered, but I mean, we consider them for everything else. Yeah.
Speaking of leeway, like, are there anything that could have given you, like, if you started your career, right, and you were given, and I hate saying accommodations, but if you were given differences in how your brain worked and were allowed to work with your brain, like what would be the biggest things that you could have used to accelerate your career faster?
Honestly, I think it was always going to just be something that I would have to come in head on and figure out how I was going to make it work for myself. But something that comes to mind is when I was at the hospital with the toilet paper roll, actually, my manager there, she wasn't there the whole time I was there, but she was the first manager I had coming out of school after graduating, and I'm very grateful for it, because if I had her later on, I would be answering your question by saying I wish I had her right out of school. And so I'm grateful that I did, because when I was going through that, like feeling like I was work with, not understanding how to communicate, moving too quickly in ways, they're making little mistakes here and there that weren't like detrimental, but like could have been, because I just wasn't fully understanding how to do this yet with the way that my brain worked. So my manager was seeing that, and she would talk to me and be like, how do we get you there? How do we get this? How do, and I would be like, I love it. Like I was like, I am I'm struggling just as much as you are with working with me, as I'm struggling working with myself just as much as you are struggling working with me right now. Yeah. He was really receptive to that. And so she was like, let me figure something out. And she set up 3 months of coaching lessons with an executive functioning coach for me. And that changed.
I love that.
Career perspective. It was amazing. I'm still very good friends with this person that was my manager. She still manages in vet med. She left vet med for a few years, and I was devastated, and I tried to convince her to come back.
All right. We need to have a conversation with this coach this manager, because I am impressed. I'm impressed.
She's incredible. And I give her a lot of credit for the technician I am now, because she setting that up for me. I remember being in the office and her saying, so like, what's happening right now is not working. I can see you stressing yourself out way too much and not fully like retaining anything or comprehending things. And like, we need to get it together. And she was like, so I don't want to tell you to change and not give you any tools to do so. So what I've done is set you up with this executive functioning coach for 3 months. And I had weekly sessions, and it was the most helpful thing in the world. And that coach did exactly what you said. She did executive functioning specifically in the workplace. So this coach and executive functioning coaches, I didn't even know that was a thing. But they work with people with things like ADHD, which in my case, which is my case. And so she tailored it specifically to veterinary medicine because that is what we were going on, like what we were trying to work through. And so it explained our day to day and what I was struggling with and my communication skills. And we just worked on everything. And so then I had this plethora of tools to use. And my manager and I also sat down and talked through, what I worked on. And she helped me make a plan too for like how I was going to use the tools that I now had at work. And one of those things was like check-ins with her too, and how I was doing. And you could see it was like black and white difference. And she was like, excellent, problem solved. And I skyrocketed.
I wish everyone had that kind of manager. Like that's the kind of leaders we need
absolutely
everywhere.
I'm so grateful that she was the first experience I had with manager. Although then my standards were really high. And so then it was like a real Debbie Downer after that. No, but not all. Like I have to give her a lot of credit for she is a person friend and how she was as a manager for me and for the whole team. Like she would do stuff like that, very personal. She's very close to her teams, and so she's thankfully back in veterinary medicine. And I'm super happy for the new hospital that she's going to be working at. The one main thing that I think really skyrocketed like myself in my career and I think it happened at a good time.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's so empowering to have that right at the start of your career. Like that's something like I'm sort of half jealous. Like I would have loved to, I would have been a different person today if I had that right out the gate. Yeah. I'm curious to know, and I sort of ask everyone on the podcast this, is like, what do you wish the rest of the world knew about how your brain processed that maybe they don't know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that this question would be answered so differently person to person. So that's a good one. I think for me specifically like work related for in veterinary medicine, like something that my brain does is that I will say words fast, like sooner than my brain has finished processing the thought. And so often I'll be like halfway through a sentence. And then in my head, I'm like, wait, Tori, that's not how I want it to communicate that. But I've already said half the sentence. Yeah. So sometimes I just look like a crazy person because I'm like, I just said 4 words that make absolutely no sense. And then I'm like, oh, wait, sorry. And people are like, did you just have a stroke? And it's like, no, sorry. It's just taking my brain a second to catch up to what I actually wanted to say. And this is particularly frustrating sometimes when I'm trying to ask questions or figure out a way to ask a question.
Yeah.
Because in my brain, I know exactly what I'm trying to ask. I know exactly what I need to know to understand what I'm asking about. But the words are not coming out. Like I can't keep it.
I know. It's always so like well articulated up here. And then as soon as it filters to the mouth, it's like, blah, blah, blah.
I'm just like, I don't even know.
It just doesn't.
Sorry.
It's not as.
Yeah. And so half the time I'll ask a question and they'll be like, wait, what? And I'm like, never mind. Sorry. Like, and it's just like, it's frustrating because it's like you said, I have it exactly what I want to say, exactly what I want to ask. And it's like either my words came out too already before I had it fully articulated, or I started talking and it just took a turn and I didn't.
All the words are gone.
Yeah. And I'm just like, never mind.
I can relate.
So I don't know, like exactly like that could be explained to the people that I am working with in a way that they would understand it, so that they could understand that I'm not just like tweaking out, and I'm I know what I want to say, even if it's not always coming out the way I want to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is if the world could let us process verbally sometimes and then let us catch up verbally with our own brains, just give us another minute before you ask us, like, what did you just say? Did you have a stroke? Like, don't judge.
Yeah.
Just let us process the information verbally, and then we will come back and articulate it a little bit better in a moment.
And I've found that it's like, it's a little
Okay.
bit easier to handle in like less high pressure situations, but like in general practice settings.
Yeah.
I might have the time and space to maybe sit down with the person and say, hey, these are my thoughts, and then like work through them. And I've even had face to face with people saying, I'm having trouble following your brain. And I'll be like, I appreciate you saying that. Let me start over. Because it's true. I would have trouble following my brain if I was sitting on the other side of me listening to the words that were coming out of my mouth sometimes. But I genuinely have like a fully well thought out question that makes sense in my head, but for some reason the words they just don't always articulate it correctly. And sometimes even sitting there thinking about it, trying to find the words to say it, sometimes I still can't. And it's just something that I'm like, I don't know how to put this into words. And that can be frustrating because it feels like a kind of like a setback for me in some ways. But there's only so much.
It just brings up that like shame that we have for some of the things that we've experienced in the world that we were told we were wrong or not good enough for. So yeah, I get that.
We're not given the space.
I don't know about you, but oftentimes I'll like say a sentence, and this happens to me all the time at my job right now, whereas I'll say a sentence and it's like I almost am dissociated where I'm hearing the words coming out of my own mouth and I'm like, those were 3 verbs in a row. That's not even a sentence, Ron. What are you trying to say? Like that negative self-talk is awful.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, and then you just can't help but apologize. And you're like, that made no sense. I know that made no sense. Give me another minute.
But then at that point, you're just humiliated and you're like, I don't even remember what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh. Oh, goodness.
Nice.
Well, I absolutely loved talking with you. Like, I think these stories are so important. It's like, I just want to bring to life like the struggles that we go through, but also like, I want to enjoy the wins that we have too. So like, so what are some of the things that like propel your career or like make you, I don't want to say superpower, right? Because that's a little cliche and a little, I don't know. It's when you have a superpower, it's kind of diminishes the struggles we go through. But like, what are some of the things that are more empowering about your neurodivergence in the workplace that, for me, I can do twice the production of other people. And I'm like, how do you not get this done in 2 hours?
Big one, yeah.
I can get it done in 20 minutes, but okay. Yeah. Like, what are some of those things for you?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it is fair to somewhat say that it can be a superpower if you hone it in and use it as one. Definitely not in every aspect, but I think we all have different ones.
Right.
One of them similar to you is efficiency. I can be super efficient from, moving quickly can have pros and cons. Sometimes moving too quickly can be...
Because we leave a disaster behind us, a tornado of mess. But I am super efficient.
But the catheter is placed and the patient's on IV fluids and it's in the cage and everything is set up for it within 10 minutes, but it looks like a bomb went off over there. Different things like that. So I can move really quickly and still be efficient. But going back to what I said about how I don't do things at all until I fully understand why I'm doing them or how to do them, and I feel comfortable enough with them. Once I do, because I've gone through those steps where I took extra time maybe than somebody else might have to understand it, just simply because I need more time to. If I'm comfortable enough doing it, I can do it very quickly and very efficiently. Not everything, but over time, and I feel like I do end up getting a lot of things done fairly quickly. But again, we still have to keep in mind that like what setting we're in and things like that. And so that can be a good one. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I also feel like the care that I have, like I have a lot of empathy for other people, and we don't saying it too, because of the way that like the struggles I've had with communication and with just learning how to work in this high stress field. I have like a lot of empathy generally for not just other people, but like not other people I work with, but also for like the clients that we deal with as well. And it not just even in the neurodivergent sense, but just in everything. Like I feel like I have a lot of empathy in general.
Agreed.
And I think that that's something that I've developed due to the fact that I worked as a neurodivergent person in this field for so long now.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like our silent struggles automatically make me assume that someone else has a silent struggle I don't know about.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. I you're right, actually. Because I assume, or I try not to assume. I more approach things with curiosity, even if I'm not going to go into a room and ask a client, hey, what's going on at home? But I can think, yeah, I don't know. I don't always know what's going on the other end. And that's something that I think it's sometimes difficult to do depending on the situation, depending on the person that you're talking to and everything. But I really try to use that to my advantage, to be the kindest as I possibly can to everybody. And I think that also, again, because of my need to have this crazy attention to detail and hyper focus, again, it makes my standard of medicine really, really high for the patients that I care for. And I think that's super important. It's very important to me. And that's something that I see as a strength that I have from this as well.
I just want to really thank you for coming on here to this podcast, sharing your story, because I know it's not always hard. It's not always easy to bare your soul and be like, here's the struggles I'm dealing with. But just thank you. Because I think that what we're doing is really important. Yeah,
what you're doing is great. I mean, I think this is awesome. It's going to spread a lot of awareness and maybe open some minds to, what the people that we work with, because we all care about each other. We're all on the same team.
We do. That's for sure. I haven't met anyone at least in our profession that hasn't cared.
Right.
Either for the clients or for their team. We may not always get along, but we definitely care about each other.
Yeah, for sure.
We have a hard way of showing it sometimes. We all care. So thanks again for being here. I continue on the conversations with you.
Yeah.
And look forward to having you around, talking to you again next time.
Yeah. Thanks, Ron. This is great.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Left Unattended. A huge thank you to my guest, Tori Burgos, for sharing her story so honestly and reminding us that neurodivergence isn't about any one thing. It's about being human. And of course, thank you to Dustin Bays for editing and making sure this podcast sounds as good as it feels. If today's conversation resonated with you, let's keep the connection going. Feel free to grab some of my coaching tools off of my website at syn-apt.me. It's syn-apt.me. Feel free to find my coaching schedule at coaching.syn-apt.me. And as always, finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast and leave a review. It helps more people find these conversations and reminds the world that belonging isn't a luxury. It's a leadership strategy. I'm your host, Ron Sosa, and this has been Left Unattended. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other.